Okay, so today's topic is Google Sites. Probably there are going to be a couple of you who have come across Google Site in the past. Maybe you are aware of it or not. We will be taking a look at a couple of examples, or rather one example before moving on to showing the process of creating a Google Site. So Google Sites uh, basically are a Google tool that allows you to build a website. And it's based on the idea of what you see is what you get, meaning that the editor shows you exactly how the site is going to look when you create your stuff. So that wasn't something that you could always take for granted when you were using a website editor. And yeah, just like with any of the other Google tools, it's a lot more simple to use than some of the competing products or other options. Um, the advantage to Google Sites is that it's easy to create something uh, very quickly and have it look pretty clean and pretty professional. Um, you can use it with students or parents or both or whatever uh, suits your needs. Basically, there's a toggle switch that allows you to change whether your link is valid for only people who are signed into wilsonschools.org email addresses, or if they don't have to be signed in at all to view the site, which is good for FERPA considerations, anything like that. You can still create an image gallery and not have to worry about FERPA because the only people who are able to see it are going to be people who are signed in with a wilsonschools.org email address. Just one of those things that you can consider when you're using this. It doesn't rely on using a learning management system. So especially like when you're doing after school groups or activities or uh, athletics, you could create a Google site and have your information on that Google site, share that site with your students or with your the members of your group. And you don't have to create a classroom for them if you don't want to. The last word here is responsive, and responsive is web design speak for a site that changes the way that it looks depending on the device type that is viewing the website. So if you're using a laptop, it'll look different than using a tablet or using a smartphone. Without fail, every time that I sat down to record a session, somebody robocalls me. Anyways, some possible use cases. These are some use cases that I've seen done before, or ones that just seemed really obvious to me. So uh, the list is not exhaustive. It's actually rather short. But I'm sure that taking a look at some of these examples or some of these situations, you're going to probably have that little spark that goes off saying, hey, if it's useful for this, it might be useful for that as well. But I've seen teachers set students up to use Google Classroom to create student portfolios because it is such a simple tool to get going. And you can link between pages and you can set it up kind of like like we used to do with the 3-ring binders and that kind of thing. There's a lot of different application for things like student portfolios or things like that. Also for activities in athletics, as I previously mentioned, it's a very useful tool to just sort of get information out there. If you're doing any sort of special events or any sort of sign up sheets, you can do that with a Google site um, in conjunction with some of the other Google stuff. And I'm going to show you how those all work together before the end of this. And then photo and video gallery. It's really simple to create a photo gallery using Google Sites. Now, this is for the benefit of the people who are watching the recording. They can pause the video and then type this into their browser and get signed in for the day. Everybody who is present live has already signed in, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on to the next slide, which is onto the demo. So yeah, to get to Google Sites, you can go to any Google page that has the little waffle menu at the top right. You click on that and find sites in your list. You might have to scroll up or down depending, but mine is right there. So I can just click on that and it'll take me to this page, which looks very similar to the other Google tools. Things like Google Docs or Google Sheets, they all have sort of this kind of landing page where you've got a row up top here of your templates. These are templates that were created by Google to be sort of something that you could build off of when you're taking a look. You know, like if you've got an event here, you can use this template and have something that's ready to go in a form that you know, you can just start making your own. For today, I will be starting one from scratch with a blank one, so it's not going to look quite as polished as these by the end of it, but it'll still be something serviceable. But you know, in by way of example, one of the ones that we actually did do was if you go to willistonschools.org and then under the staff section, then go to digital resources, it'll take you to this page, which has all of like a whole bunch of information that we thought would be useful for new teachers entering the district. Basically information on how a lot of different systems work in the district. So, you know, you click on general WPSD1 information, and that'll take you to a page that has a list of different things, or you can use the sidebar here. We've got a page for FERPA. I think we sent this out to everybody at the beginning of the year when we were getting FERPA trained. And it's just sort of a brief overview of FERPA, but you know, this is all put together using a Google site. So everything that you're seeing here is all available to you if you're using a Google site. You know, and if you haven't gone through this page before, you might be interested in some of the stuff that's on here. I mean, we've got information about how to use the phones, you know, things like setting up your voicemail, moving your phone to a different handset so that, you know, you can take your calls from a different desk or something like that. The menu for voicemail operations, you know, we got some stuff on here. It's not an extensive list of things, but there are a couple of things on here that maybe even if you've been here for a while, you might not know how to use some of these features. Anyway, that was all put together using a Google site. So we're just going to go ahead and start. Oh, okay, yeah. To go there again, you go to willistonschools.org, and then you go under the staff link. That's under digital resources. And so that's got all that stuff on there. For the high school, I mean, we didn't have quite as much time as we would have liked to put everything together, but we've got things in here like classroom tech, which talks about the docking stations, the projector screens, and the document cameras. It doesn't go into great detail, but there's information there that you might be interested in. So yeah, we're going to go ahead and start a new blank Google site. And the first thing that you're going to want to do when you create a new Google site is you're going to want to give the site a name. And this is the name for everything on the site. And so this one here is called Teacher Resources. And if I went back into there, that's what it's called in my Google Drive. And it's basically like your file name, but it is also visible to anybody who visits the website. So just be aware of that. So we're going to go ahead and call this one P6 demo. And you can title your main page whatever you like. It is just the main home page. So, you know, you can do like welcome to P6. And, you know, that's just your header. That's just what's going to show up at the top of the page. You do have a couple of different header styles that are available. If you have You can change the image in the background. So if you have an image that you really like, you can set that. Let's say, for instance, we want a beach image. Let's go ahead and select that one. And so, when you've changed your image here, now it's going to try and make it so that it's nice and readable. But you can select it so that it expands the image out and covers the entire top or the entire page until you scroll down. Or you can make it big, a little bit smaller, or not show the image at all. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and do that. When you've got the image set in here, you can't actually like move it up or down. So you want to make sure that your image is showing in a form that you're that you're finding acceptable before you move on. Basically, if you might have to go in and crop the image manually in order to get this to display right, but changing the header type might also fix that for you. So if there's something down here that you wanted visitors to be able to see on here, you just have to switch between the different views until you get something that looks good. We're going to go ahead and let's use the large banner on this one. And so, now we've got our header set up. It's time to start looking at what we can put for content on the page. And so all of your content is going to be added using these options on the bar on the right. So right here, the first thing we're going to do is the simplest thing we can do, which is add a text box. And I don't have a whole lot of creativity right now for typing something into the text box and taking up a lot of space. So I'm just going to copy and paste some filler text that I had lined up. And, now we've got our first piece of content on this page. And we have created essentially what is probably the most simple web page that we could have created. Basically just text on a web page. And you can use this way, but there is no advantage to doing this that you're not getting over, just having a regular document, like a regular Google Doc. So, in order to really utilize everything that's available to us, we would want to be introducing other types of media and other types of file to this page as well. And also including links to other pages that we create, because that's really the difference between a Google site or a Google Doc, is the ability to add multiple types of media into the page, as well as links and having some pre-built navigation that helps you get around. So because of that, we're going to go ahead and start adding some other stuff to this page. We're going to go ahead and add an image. When you click on images, it gives you the option to upload an image from your computer, or you can select one from Google Drive. There's also an option in Select for Google Image Search. So if you know what you're looking for, but don't have an image already ready to go for it, you can just use Google Image Search for that. But I do have an image that I'm going to use. That's the wrong folder. There we go, my drive. Click on the coyote, insert, and so now I've got the coyote logo on my page here. Now, every time that you add a new element, it creates it into a new section. So right in here, we've got the first section where we've got the text, and then we've got the second section between these two sets of these two dotted lines. That is just a new section for the image that we just put in. But if I want this image to be in the same section, go along with this text, I do have the ability to do that. I can just click and drag this image. You can see that there's these vertical lines that show up. Those are the snap points. You can't like freely resize things. They have to like kind of go into those snap points. It's a little difficult to explain in words, but you'll kind of see what's going on when I start to resize this image. But you can see like I can move it back and forth so that it snaps to one of these sets of lines. And right in the middle, it'll automatically resize to make it even. So if I drop it there, now it's evenly sized there, and it'll just snap to be perfectly centered, which honestly, if you're coding by hand, that's one of the most difficult things that you could possibly do. Not even joking, is getting centered text and images. That's one of the banes of my existence when I'm coding websites. But yeah, if I drag it up here, I get different options for where I can drop this image into the same segment as the text. So if I drop it right up top, it resizes it to make it huge, but it makes it fit the entire width of the text. And so, once I click into this text, if I resize the text to be like half width, now the image goes along with it. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that, because where I actually want this image to end up is over on the left side. And you can see again, it resizes the image to sort of fit that slot. But I'm actually going to make this image bigger. And so what you can see is, like, if I go out, it's going to want to snap to this point right here. So even if I expand it out to like right here, it'll snap it back to one of those vertical lines. So you can see, right there, that's the snap point that it's going to move to. And it always goes to the nearest one, I believe. So if I drop it off like right over here, it's going to expand out to the one on the right. And if I made it a little bit smaller, it'll go to the one on the left. And it seems like it always goes towards the a line that is sort of opposite the other one. So like you can see how there's how it's divided into sections. So like this one is paired with this one is paired with this one. I can't sort of bridge these lines here. I would have to go up to the next one or back to the smaller one. So it does it in these pairs where there's the left margin and then there's the right margin. So I'm going to actually go back to here and I'll make this big again. And you can see that by doing that, I have basically created like an image section that is smaller than the image that I put into it. So there are a couple of ways that I can handle this. Either I can move the crop so that it is showing the part of the image that I want visible by clicking on the crop tool and then scooching the image over, or making the image bigger or smaller as my need indicates. And once I am satisfied with the change I've made, I can click the check mark. And so this is one possible way of dealing with the fact that the image gets a little bit chopped up. Or I can click uncrop, and it's going to shrink down the vertical size so that the entire image is able to be displayed. And so now I've got an image to go with my text. I've leveled this website up so that now it's a multimedia sort of experience, or at least a more visually appealing experience. One of the things that I notice here is maybe I want a headline to show up right above this text. And there are a couple of ways I can do that. I can just go in and add this headline myself in here, and then changing this to title. And then it's going to treat this all as, it treats the paragraph as a title paragraph. There's another way that you can do this though, which would be if I got rid of that, I could create a new text box, type in headline, and change the style to a title. And then I can use the little handle that shows up right here. I can click and drag that handle to the top of the text that I want to put it on top of. And this will keep these two separate so that I can manipulate this however I need to without worrying about accidentally getting rid of my title or vice versa. So either way is valid. It's just whichever way you want to go about it. Now, I did kind of go fast over this style thing, and the reason that style is important to use rather than going through and um, manually changing the text options yourself, because I could do that. I could do type in headline, switch the font to whatever I want. So let's say that I want Bree Serif, and I want this size 30. And let's change the text color to, a nice shade of blue. That's going to be like really terribly not visible against the background. Okay. Yeah, I can style this myself, but then if I go and change the theme, it's not going to change with the rest of the page. And so theming is kind of an important thing to consider when you're making a Google site, because your theme options are not the most extensive, but they're pretty good. There's a few different ways that you can um, have it set. So like right now it's on simple, and we can go in and we can change the color, and notice that when I change the color of the theme, it changes the color of my headline or my title segment, but it doesn't change the color of this one. So, this one's purple now, this one isn't. And the reason that that's the case is because this is still marked as normal text with my special modifications. So if I wanted to get that to match that one, I would have to change it over to title. And now when I make these changes, it makes the changes across both elements. And that can be even more jarring when you go to something like this one right here called Vision, where it's got these two horizontal bars that show up above and below those headlines, below those title item elements. Um, not every page type does that kind of thing. Like this one, it does outlines around all of them. But they all do something to change the font size and the actual font being used. So it is important to mark the types of paragraph that you have. So like, I can go in and I can add a paragraph in here, subheading 1, and I can highlight that and change that to a subheading. And now when I go in and change my theme, it will change that as well as the headline. So it's just good to remember that styles are important for when you're dealing with your text boxes in Google in Google Sites. So we've got all the basics here. Now let's start adding some of the fancy stuff. And some of the fancy stuff, that's going to be things like your image carousel. And your image carousel, when you open that up, it's going to ask for at least 2 images, and that's because an image carousel is basically like a little box that you put on your page that has like a left and right arrow button that allows you to scroll through the different or flip through the different images that you've put on the page. So we're going to go ahead and select some images. Let's do an image search for cats. And let's go ahead and select a few cat pictures that we like. And so I've selected 5 images here that I'll just go ahead and click insert, and then I'll insert there. And now it's based this sort of off of the first image that I selected. It bases the size off that, but I can resize this to however big or small I want it. So if I only want my image gallery to be about that big, then I can go ahead and do it that way. And I can even make it like wider and narrower. And then, it'll just cycle between those pictures. But it'll crop them automatically to the center of the image. So just be aware of that. I do think that you're able to click into them, but we'll test that in a bit. Yeah, we can do that. We can add a YouTube video as part of one of our segments. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to find something from Crash Course. And of course, I did not spell it correctly. Okay, so let's go cybersecurity crash course, sure. Select, and now we have a YouTube video on our page. And it doesn't have to be YouTube. That's just one of the options that's available. We also have all these other Google options. And if you have a video in your Google Drive that you want to share, you do have to make sure that your sharing settings are set correctly on whatever it is that you're going to share first. So if I'm going to share out a video, I better already have that video set to be publicly visible if I want the public to see it. So I'm going to go into Meet Recordings here. And I'm going to select this video and click Insert. And now that has inserted that video from my Google Drive, just like it would with the YouTube video. And again, I did that by clicking on the Drive button in that foursquare at the top. Now, right underneath these four buttons, you might have noticed that there was a set called Layouts. And these are pre-made layouts of different placeholders and text boxes that you can use as something of a shortcut. You know, I took the long route to get this set up correctly, but I could have just as easily clicked on that and gotten pretty much the same thing. Placeholders, this is a placeholder object, and you can get the same sort of thing down here by clicking on placeholder. And that allows you to sort of create an element and not be committed to what's going in there until you figure it out. So like, I know that this part of the screen, I want something to show up on the right side, and then I'll put my text box over on the left side. And then that way I can sort of keep staggering images across the screen. You know, maybe that's the way that I want it to look. The last thing that I'm going to add to this page is going to be a Google form. I really like the idea that you can put a Google form in a fillable Google form directly onto a web page. There's a couple of ways that that can be useful. That can be like if you've got a video right above it and you want your students to watch the video and then answer the questions on the form so that you know that they did watch the video, you can do that. And so I can just pop this form directly at the bottom. And I'll move it to the middle to center it. And now there's a form directly below the video that I wanted them to watch. And so I'll go ahead and drag that down. And I'm interested, I've never done this before, but let's see. Yep, we have put the video as part of the same segment as the attendance sheet, which is interesting. Hadn't tried that before, and that's pretty cool. There are design elements in here as well. You've got button and divider. You've got a table of contents that you can use, which automatically populates based off of your headlines and your titles and headings and subheadings. Could be useful. But yeah, now I've got enough stuff on here. I'm curious to see what this is going to look like to the person who visits this site. And so even without publishing it, I have the ability to click this image or this icon here that kind of looks like a laptop with a smartphone in front of it. And that's going to let me preview what this site looks like to people visiting the site. So right here, you can see that a lot of it is the same, but the arrow keys actually show up on my slideshow now, or my image gallery. I guess you can't click on the picture or the dots down here. Hopefully that's something that they add as a feature later on. But then once I've scrolled down to the bottom, takes a little bit for things to load because I used Google Drive. There we go. Google Drive just happens to load faster or load slower than YouTube when it comes to things like this. Just something to be aware of. But yeah, you can see that my form is completely fillable directly off of this page. And so while we're in preview mode, we can go ahead and look at these controls at the bottom right, and they'll allow us to switch to what it looks like on your tablet. This would be like a tablet in portrait mode, and then what it would look like on a smartphone. And you can see that when you've changed it from tablet to smartphone mode, the image changes its position. So because smartphones are so narrow, it has moved the image that was to the right of this text to be above the text. And if I had an image to the left of text, it would move it below the text. So it's just kind of remember that it'll just sort of take those long sections and flip them up. I have no idea if that was the correct direction on your end or not, because I don't remember if this mirrors, if the camera mirrors or not. Anyways, we're going to leave preview mode. And I'm going to check my time here. Yeah, so now that we've created a page, we're going to want to create more pages. And creating more pages is kind of what Google Sites is about. You want to be able to break up the information across multiple different connected pages. So we're going to flip over to this Pages tab. And you can see right here, we've got the home page, and that's it. So to add more, we go to this plus down here and click on the new page button. And we're going to start adding subjects. So let's go ahead and add math. Let's add science. Let's add history. And let's add English. And you can see that each time that I'm adding a page in here, I'm also adding a page in the navigation bar at the top. And the navigation bar doesn't have to be at the top. I mean, in this example, it's over on the left side. So in order to change that, we click on the little gear right here or right here. Both of them will take you to the same place. We look at this navigation tab, and it's got a mode switch that is set to top, but we can set it to side. And it'll collapse that into that hamburger menu unless you're in the desktop mode, in which case it always shows on the left side. Oops, okay. I'm gonna go ahead and keep this one top for now because I like that with this theme. You can change the color to be transparent, white, or black, depending on how you want to style your site or what theme you're using, whatever looks best to you. And so we can just keep on adding new pages. Let's call this one art. Call this one music. Let's do foreign language. And it'll keep on adding those different pages to the navigation bar. And this can become a problem once you start to add a lot of pages on this top level. So one of the considerations that you do have to make is, okay, do I have everything on the top level, or do I need to start making subpages? And that can be really obvious when you do have pages for entries that are clearly a subpage of something else, or clearly part of a broader subject. So if I were to start branching into things like algebra, pre-calculus, statistics, and so these probably do not deserve to be their own top level page when I already have a math page. Those ones probably should be a subpage of the math page. So because I've already started making them, what I can do is I can click and drag them in this panel and drop them into Math. And I don't have to create them as a top level page first. I can go and find my category here, and I can click the three dots next to it, and I can do add subpage. And so chemistry, and we'll go ahead and make another subpage for earth science. And so now, because I have subpages put in, when I take a look at this navigation bar, now I have drop downs that allow me to sort of select which subpage I want to go to, or I can go to the main page because the main pages still exist. So yeah, that's kind of the organization section for the pages. There are some other things that you can be doing, like if you have a page that you want to add content to, but you don't want it to show up in the navigation bar, we can do that. We can create a new page. Let's call this one hidden page. And we're going to drag it to the end here so that it's right on the end. And I'll click the three dots next to it and click hide from navigation. And it's going to pop that off of the navigation page. It'll still be accessible as long as somebody knows that it's there and knows what it's called. But it isn't going to show up on the page. So just remember, even though it's hidden, it's still live. You could still navigate there, but it is not showing up in the navigation bar. And the reason that you might want to do that is if you're doing something fun like a web quest, or if you've got, say you are teaching algebra and you've got subpages in algebra called lesson 1. That didn't take for some reason. Lesson 1. There we go. Now we've got 2 lesson 1, so we're going to go ahead and rename this one to lesson 2. And let's go ahead and create a subpage, lesson 3. So now that I've added these lessons in, now I've got this subpage here where I can click on that and see them in the navigation bar. Well, I might think that that's a little bit too messy. And since I'm already going to create links to these pages in the algebra page, maybe I don't need those showing up in the navigation bar. So I'll go ahead and hide all of those from the navigation bar. And now we're back to just having the main categories and their subcategories. So I'll go back to algebra and I'll start adding something so that we can get to those hidden pages. We're going to go ahead and do a bulleted list, and we'll call this one lesson 1, lesson 2, lesson 3. And to add a link to any page, we just highlight the text that we want to turn into a link, or we can click into an image to turn into a link, and then we're going to click this insert link button. And now all I have to do is scroll through and find the appropriate page that I want to send people to, and click apply or hit enter. And now we have a link to that page. And it doesn't have to be a link to a page within your Google site. You can create links to external pages as well. So like if I wanted to make this a link to Google, all I have to do is do www.google.com and hit enter, and it creates this as a link to google.com. So yeah, you can link to external sites as well as pages that you've created within your Google site. All you have to do to create a link to a page in your Google site is use that same insert link tool and then scroll down until you find the page that you want to link, and then click apply. Let's see, was there any other interesting stuff before we head to the last portion of this? Nope. So we're just going to go ahead and get this ready to send out to our parents or our students or whoever we're sending it to. If we're going to be sending this out to parents, there is an additional step that we have to take, or if we're sending this out to the general public. There's one additional step during this last portion that we have to take that we wouldn't have to do if we were just sending it to students. So I'm going to go ahead and hit publish. And this is going to ask me to confirm the address that I want. So the whole address for this site would be sites.google.com/willistonschools.org/p6demo. And I can change the P6 demo part to whatever I want as long as it's not already taken by somebody else. And then down here, we can see who can view my site, anyone at WPSD1, which means that they would have to be logged in order to see the site. Well, if I want to send this out to parents, or if I want to send this out to the general public, I'm going to have to click this manage button first. And then I'll need to go to this links section and click change. And then I'll need to change this dropdown that goes with publish site to public. Once I've done that, then I can click done and publish. And now this is taking everything that was on this page and it's making a public version of it. So on the back end here in the editor, we have our draft. This is what we're currently working on. And once we hit that publish button, it takes that draft version and it makes that public. And what that means is that I can take this link, I can copy it, and I can send it in an email or put it in a learning management system or wherever I'm going to put this link so that other people can see it. And people are able to visit my site. They're able to click my links to go to my hidden page. Actually, yes, this is the one to the hidden page. So it'll just take me over to the hidden page, which might take a second, but it'll do it eventually. But if I'm going to make some changes to this, if I go to, say, for instance, my pre-calculus page, and I want to add some collapsible text, which is really cool. Collapsible text is the kind of thing that we have on the frequently asked questions page where you have like a whole bunch of stuff hidden underneath a headline, and you have to click into it in order to see what's under there. Makes it a lot nicer to look at lists like this. But if I'm going to do that, I'm going to have to, I'm going to have to put that together. Actually, like a list of all the trainings or something. I'll probably put it on my YouTube or something like that. So yeah, I'll just go ahead and say that this is item 1. And I'll do another collapsible text for item 2. And then I'll go ahead and grab my filler text here again, copy and paste. And so I've made these changes to the pre-calculus site, and in a Google Doc, those changes would show up instantly. Right. And in order to, see you later, and in order to get this visible to anybody who's coming to this page, I have to click publish again. And so I've got the different changes here. This is the old version, and this is the old version, and this is the new version. The new version doesn't take effect until I click publish again. And that's pretty much the long and short for Google Sites. That's everything that I've got planned for today. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask them to me. You can send me an email if you're watching this on the recording, or you can stick around and type it or talk into the chat if you like. But see you later. If you got to go, see you later.